Welcome to Status Secure, the weekly cyber threat briefing for executives who refuse to operate in the blind. Hosted by the Watcher 6 Collective, uniting former Army Special Forces and Naval Special Warfare Communications operators, alongside an industry-leading CISO nominated for Cybersecurity Woman of the World. We cut through the noise and give you the operational intelligence you need for mission success in a hostile digital environment. The enemy is listening. Is your status secure? Welcome to Status Secure. We're taking a break from our normal format today because, well, we just talked about CMMC Level 2 and Level 3 on the last episode, and just a day or two ago, we got news from the Department of War that they're suspending the deadline and some of the current requirements for Phase 2 or Level 2 of CMMC. And so we're going to get into that. We're going to get into what it says, what it means, and what it means for you. So what actually happened, CISO? Can you break it down for us?
Yes. So to start off, I'm not surprised. Sitting in like SBA meetings, like the small business, across the country, everybody was struggling with it, right? So on 2 days ago, on July 13, 2026, the Department of War suspended the CMMC Phase II, and it was effective immediately. Right? And including pending and future CMMC implementation milestones across DOW solicitations and contracts. So, talking to like small suppliers and vendors, they were already starting to see CMMC requirements on bids, right? On requests for RFPs for proposals. Those are all now just suspended. So you don't have to worry about those. Phase 2, it was the mandatory third-party 3CPAO certification requirement. If you recall from the last episode, basically it said you could not self-attest anymore. You needed to hire a third party, and that third party had to be certified as a C3PAO. And that's what happened. They suspended that. They're doing a 60-day study. And there's a new CMMC Reform Task Force that's going to conduct a top-to-bottom review. They're going to get feedback. So if you go onto the DOW CIO website, there's actually a form. They put out a request for information. So they put out a form. Go if you're a vendor, or you're a subcontractor, sub-supplier, go on there, fill out that form. Hey, let them know what you think, because right now they're going to take 60 days to review all the feedback. This is tied to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth's acquisition transformation system, right? I mean, the goal here, so there has to be a balance, right? They wanted to make sure that there was security, but they don't want this to be a barrier, right, to small and non-traditional businesses, so that they just get out of the defense industrial base, right? Because I was also hearing that small businesses, well, I can't afford this. I'm just not going to bid on, federal contracts. I'm going to look for private clients, or they were just going to, or they felt like they were going to have to close their business if that was the majority of their contracts, right? So the goal was for scalable security, not more bureaucracy, right? So this is, this was meant to, for the government to verify cybersecurity, not as a barrier, like I said, to entry. Okay, so they paused it. They're going to take a look at it. If you want your voices heard, fill out that form.
Got it. And it's kind of funny because literally the last episode 23, we talked about Level 2, Level 3, deadlines, what this means for you, what you need to do about it, all these things. So I guess help explain. This doesn't just get rid of things, right? This isn't just we're totally getting rid of it and don't even worry about it. So where does all this kind of exist now? Let's say I was in the process of getting Level 2 or whatever. What's the conversation now?
Well, you were already, just so everybody understands, that there's nothing wrong with requiring Level 2, right? Right now it's self-certification. So the NIST SP 800-171, the 110 controls, I mean, they're still there. It's not like they went away. It doesn't mean that they went away. You were supposed to be level, 2 self-certified, right? So self-attestation, basically, right? You were saying, yes, I comply with this. So that's still there. Understand the False Claims Act, right? You said that you had these in place. Okay, so it's still there. It's not gone. If you're in the process, continue, right? This just gives you a breather, but that doesn't mean that requirement, that obligation is gone. This suspension is a review. So it might come out a little bit different, or they might give you a longer timeline. Okay? It doesn't mean that it's gone. Your security requirements are gone.
Got it. And so on that note, why don't you help walk us through what did not change, like what we still need to uphold?
Yeah. So phase one, right? Phase one, which has been in place, right? And in effect is the self-assessments, right? So you need to be level 1 or level 2 at that security level, but you do a self-assessment, right? And then you do an attestation. Your executive signs saying that you have these controls in place. So that's still there. NIST 800-171, that is still your goal. Okay, that's you still need to understand that. Okay, you still need those 110 controls, and the government continues to have the right to audit, basically, right? So they can come in and they can assess you on those if they feel there is cause. DFARS clause 252.204-7, 12. It states that you need to protect federal data. That doesn't go away. The False Claims Act, if you are lying, right, the DOJ can, take you to court, and there's a whole bunch of consequences if you self-assess and self-attest, and they discover that you were lying. Those are still the same.
Yeah, because last week we talked about how false self-attestation is a fraud claim waiting to happen. And so I guess it's where are we at in the sense of, I don't need to pay for that thing anymore, or at least right now, right? Until that 60-day review happens, and then we'll see what comes from that. But maybe it is still a good thing to pay for something, right? So like, I don't know, walk us through that. Yes, I can self-attest, but how, I can still get someone to help me do that the right way. Right.
Well, I would just say this, again, phase 2 is not gone. They're just hearing back, a lot of challenges. Number one, the C3PAOs, there's only 1,000 of them, and and they're starting supply and demand, right? Because there's such a small supply of the C3PAOs, they were starting to charge a lot, and the government doesn't want, let's just call it what it is, right? Gouging. Right? Charging these small businesses a lot because they're in a bind, right? I don't think that was the intention, but that's what was happening, right? So, so they're pausing it to give time. So, just think of it as a boon, right? Just like, ooh, right? I get a little bit more time. Not that, oh, this is gone, right? Definitely still, if you're in the process, continue. If you haven't started yet, get someone, right? Like we can help, right? There's companies out there, but we definitely can help you, right? But don't think that this is going away. You still need to get the level 2, the third party, certification. It's just when, right? When is this going to be required, and how is that going to roll out through procurement?
Got it. Yeah. So, hey, maybe, I was in that stage where we're about to go through level 2. What would be your advice right now? Like, do I just like pump the brakes and wait to see what happens with the 60-day review? Well, what would you advise a person in that situation to do?
Well, if you're already in the process, you can just breathe and just take a deep breath. Okay. And now, there isn't that urgency, which is great because you can really think through how you're going to spend your money on, like, what are you going to spend your money on? Take the time to really understand and investigate. Don't just accept whatever offer comes, is on the table for implementing the controls. If you're not in the process, this is a good time because there's no immediate urgency anymore because we know that November 10th is not the date anymore. I can guarantee you, that's not the date anymore, right? We just don't know what the date's going to be, but this gives you time. Obviously people have been rushing to try and understand and get, figure out what to do. Well, continue that. Hire someone to help you. Somebody who's familiar with with the controls and the CMMC requirement. I would say this is, again, just be like, yes, I have some time. Right? Don't think you have forever either. They're only taking 60 days and they're going to come back with like some decision.
Yeah, I know. And there's a part of me that goes, I get it. On one hand, you might have some of these companies that are like, yeah, I'm one of the ones that like the reason this pause happened, like, so because, this is good for me. Let me take a break. Let me take a step back, not spend all that money, whatever. And maybe there's those other companies where you're going, well, keep going, just do this stuff because now you're just ahead of the curve anyways, right? You're just ahead of everyone else because at some point the backlog's going to continue, right? Like they're going to push something through. It's going to just stay ahead of the curve. Why drop off and then get in the back of the line? Hey, but maybe that's easy for me to say. But yeah, so let's just kind of move into marching orders. You're in this situation, whether you're finishing level 2 and you have it, or you're in the process of it, or you're like, I was sweating bullets trying to figure this out, and now I'm glad I don't have to right now anyways. What are like the 3 things that every defense contractor should execute right now with this new news?
Right. Well, I'm going to just say what's, the elephant in the room. You were supposed to have a self-assessment, an honest, right, self-assessment that you were level, that you were compliant, right, with the 110 controls. Okay? If you're panicking, it's because you really didn't believe, right, that you actually complied with the requirement. So be honest about your self-assessment. Really do a real one, right? Because if you really are if you really have your controls, then passing is fine. It's just making sure you get in the queue for the C3PAO, right? Make sure you close your gaps if you have them, right? They allow you 18 months. You can put a gap in a poem and you have 18 months. So, that gives you that time too. I mean, these are, consider these like booms, right? Like you now have time. That doesn't mean to stop, right? It just means you can, slow down. What's that saying you always say? Slow down to...
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
That's right. That's right. This is a prime time for that, right? Make sure that you submit the form, right? The RFI from the department's CIO, and then watch, because 60 days goes by fast. Make sure in 60 days what the direction is going forward.
Yeah. Well, here's the bottom line. The Department of War suspended a certification mechanism. It didn't suspend the standard. It did not suspend the threat. And it did not suspend your legal obligation under DFARS to protect federal data. So NIST 800-171 is still enforced. Your self-assessment still has to be true. And in 60 days, some new version of this requirement is going to show up. So the contractors who hear suspended and stand down are going to be exposed on these fronts and scrambling again, right, when the reformed program lands. So the ones who treat this as a breathing room to get genuinely secure will come out on top. They'll come out ready, compliant, and ahead. So the paperwork's paused, but the mission isn't. Trust but verify your own posture. Right? Keep your self-assessment honest. Keep closing your gaps. Engage the review. Execute the standard. And we'll see you next week. Mission success isn't about luck. It's about preparation. You've heard the intel. Now, go put it to use. If you need to verify your security posture, I've established a secure line at watcher6.com/secure. Go there to get the briefing the enemy doesn't want you to have. We'll see you next week. Until then, keep your head on a swivel.